August of 1135, Suffolk, England. The harvest moon hung heavy over fields of ripening grain, casting long shadows across the village of Woolpit. Its name meant wolf pit in the old tongue, a reminder of the deep traps once dug to catch the beasts that prowled these ancient lands. But on this particular evening, as the last light faded and the first stars pierced the darkening sky, something far stranger than wolves would emerge from those forgotten holes in the earth. Two children, brother and sister, their skin the color of spring leaves, speaking words that belonged to no earthly tongue. They appeared beside the wolf pits like phantoms born from the soil itself, their eyes wide with terror, their voices raised in a language that made the blood run cold. The villagers who found them stood frozen, not with fear of the unknown, but with the crushing weight of impossibility made flesh. Before we dive deeper into this mystery that has haunted historians for nearly 9 centuries, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe, because we're about to uncover truths that will challenge everything you thought you knew about medieval England. This is not just another folklore tale passed down through generations of storytellers. This is documented history, recorded independently by 2 medieval chroniclers who had no reason to lie and everything to lose by including impossible stories in their sacred texts. William of Newburgh and Ralph of Coggeshall, separated by hundreds of miles and writing decades apart, both felt compelled to preserve this account for posterity. William himself admitted his reluctance, stating he would never include such an impossible story, were it not for the countless reliable witnesses who had sworn to its truth. The England of 1135 was a land carved by conquest and scarred by civil war. King Stephen had seized the throne, plunging the realm into a period historians would later call the Anarchy. Norman lords battled Anglo-Saxon resistance. Flemish mercenaries roamed the countryside, and displaced populations wandered roads that offered no safety and less mercy. In this chaos, the appearance of 2 foreign children might have been unremarkable, except for one detail that no amount of political turmoil could explain. Their skin was green, not the pale green of sickness, not the mottled bruising of injury, but a uniform, vibrant green that pulsed with life beneath the surface. The villagers of Woolpit had seen plague victims, famine survivors, refugees from distant wars. They had witnessed every form of human suffering their violent age could produce, but they had never seen anything like this. The children were found during harvest time, when the entire village worked from dawn to dusk gathering the grain that would sustain them through the coming winter. It was near the old wolf pits, those deep excavations that gave the village its name, that the workers first heard the voices. Not English voices, not French or Latin or any of the languages that echoed through the markets of nearby Bury St. Edmunds. These were sounds that seemed to rise from the earth itself, alien syllables that twisted the tongue and confused the ear. When the villagers approached, they discovered the source of the strange cries. 2 children, a boy and a girl, huddled together beside one of the ancient pits. The girl appeared older, perhaps 12 or 13 summers, while the boy seemed younger, frailer, his small frame trembling with exhaustion and fear. Both wore clothing cut from fabric the villagers had never seen, woven in patterns that belonged to no known tradition. But it was their skin that stopped every heart, that made grown men cross themselves and whisper prayers to saints they had forgotten since childhood. Green as new grass, green as spring leaves, green as the deep moss that grew in the shadowed places where sunlight never touched. The children's flesh held this color uniformly, from the crowns of their heads to the tips of their fingers, as if they had been dipped in some otherworldly dye that penetrated to their very souls. The immediate reaction was panic. Some villagers fled, convinced they had stumbled upon demons or fairy children sent to curse their harvest. Others remained, held by curiosity stronger than fear, watching as the strange pair clung to each other and spoke their incomprehensible words. The children seemed as frightened as their discoverers, their green eyes wide with terror as they took in the foreign faces surrounding them. Sir Richard de Calne, the local squire whose manor house stood 6 miles north of Woolpit, was summoned to make sense of this impossible discovery. A man of education and authority, he had served under 3 kings and witnessed wonders that would have shattered lesser minds. Yet even Sir Richard, hardened by years of warfare and political intrigue, found himself speechless before these green children who had emerged from the earth like supernatural seeds finally come to bloom. The practical question of what to do with them fell to Sir Richard, and his first instinct was Christian charity. He ordered the children brought to his manor house, where they could be properly fed and sheltered while learned men pondered their origins. This decision, born of compassion, would soon test the patience of every soul in his household. The children refused to eat. Every attempt to feed them met with the same response: violent rejection of anything placed before them. Bread, meat, vegetables, fruits, dairy products, all were pushed away with the same desperate gestures. The cooks tried every dish they knew, prepared food in every manner their experience suggested, yet the green children would not take so much as a single bite. Days passed. The boy grew weaker, his already frail form becoming skeletal as starvation took hold. The girl, though stronger, began to show signs of the same decline that threatened her brother's life. Sir Richard's household watched in growing desperation as the mysterious children slowly wasted away before their eyes. Servants whispered that perhaps this was divine punishment for harboring creatures that might be demons in disguise. Others argued that Christian duty demanded they continue trying to save these strange souls, regardless of their supernatural origins. Then came the breakthrough that would define everything that followed. One of the kitchen servants, working in Sir Richard's garden, noticed the children watching intently as she harvested broad beans. The green children's eyes fixed on the vegetables with an intensity that bordered on hunger, their nostrils flaring as if catching a scent that spoke to their starved bodies. When the servant offered them the raw beans, still dirty from the earth, the children fell upon them with desperate enthusiasm. They devoured the vegetables with their hands, eating not just the beans but the pods as well, consuming every part of the plant as if it contained the essence of life itself. For the first time since their discovery, the green children showed signs of satisfaction, their alien words taking on tones of gratitude rather than distress. This dietary breakthrough provided temporary relief, but it also deepened the mystery surrounding their origins. Why would children refuse all conventional food, yet crave raw beans with such desperation? What did this strange preference reveal about the place they claimed as home? And most importantly, would their survival depend entirely on a diet that no human community could sustain? As the days turned to weeks and the children slowly grew stronger on their diet of raw beans, something remarkable began to happen. The vibrant green of their skin started to fade, so gradually that the change was almost imperceptible at first. Like leaves losing their chlorophyll as autumn approaches, their flesh began to pale, revealing hints of the normal human coloration that lay beneath their supernatural tint. This transformation coincided with their gradual acceptance of other foods. Bread came first, then simple vegetables, slowly expanding their diet beyond the raw beans that had saved their lives. With each new food they accepted, their green coloration diminished further, as if their strange appearance had been tied not to their nature, but to their nourishment. Yet, even as their bodies adapted to this new world, their minds remained locked behind the barrier of language. The green children continued to speak only in their alien tongue, their words carrying emotions that could be understood without translation: fear, gratitude, confusion, but their actual meaning remained as mysterious as their origins. The breakthrough in communication came slowly, like dawn breaking over a winter landscape. Word by word, gesture by gesture, the surviving girl began to piece together the English tongue. Her brother, weakened by whatever ordeal had brought them to this strange land, grew more frail with each passing day. His small body could not adapt as readily as his sister's, and despite the care lavished upon him by Sir Richard's household, death crept closer with each labored breath. The boy's baptism was arranged hastily, a desperate attempt to save his soul even as his body failed. The priest spoke the sacred words over water that reflected not the face of an ordinary child, but features still tinged with that otherworldly green, now faded to a sickly pallor that spoke of approaching departure. The ceremony was completed just days before the boy drew his final breath, leaving his sister alone in a world that remained as foreign to her as she was to it. With her brother's death, the girl's transformation accelerated, as if his passing had released her from some invisible bond that tied her to their mysterious homeland. Her skin continued to pale, her acceptance of normal food grew complete, and most remarkably her grasp of the English language blossomed with startling speed. It was as though the barriers that had protected her alien nature were crumbling, allowing her to become something new, something that could exist in both worlds. When she finally possessed enough words to tell her story, what emerged defied every attempt at rational explanation. She spoke of a land where the sun never shone, where twilight reigned eternal, and everything basked in a greenish light that matched the color her skin had once held. She called this place St. Martin's Land, a realm where all the inhabitants shared her former coloration, where the very air seemed thick with the same verdant essence that had once flowed through her veins. Her account of their arrival in Woolpit was fragmentary, filtered through the confusion of a child's memory and the trauma of impossible circumstances. She remembered tending their father's cattle, as children did in that twilight realm. The animals had wandered, and she and her brother had followed, pursuing the beasts through landscapes that grew stranger with each step. Then came the sound, a great ringing, like the bells of some vast cathedral, echoing from depths beneath the earth. Following this sound, they had entered what she described as a great cavern, a tunnel that seemed to stretch endlessly into darkness. The ringing grew louder, more insistent, pulling them forward through passages that twisted and turned like the roots of some cosmic tree. Time lost meaning in that underground maze. They walked for what felt like days, guided only by the persistent tolling that seemed to promise escape from their subterranean prison. Then suddenly, impossibly, they emerged into blazing daylight that burned their eyes accustomed to perpetual twilight. The sun, that fierce orb unknown in their homeland, struck them like a physical blow. Disoriented and terrified, they found themselves beside the wolf pits of Woolpit, transported from their world to this one by means that defied every law of nature and reason. The girl's story spread through the household and beyond, carried by servants and visitors who heard fragments of her tale. Some dismissed it as the fantasies of a traumatized child, her mind constructing impossible explanations for experiences too terrible to remember clearly. Others found in her words confirmation of their deepest suspicions, that these children had indeed come from somewhere beyond the boundaries of the known world. As months passed and the girl's integration into Sir Richard's household deepened, her behavior began to reflect the complex nature of her situation. The chroniclers would later describe her as wanton and impudent, words that carried weight in medieval society. She displayed a boldness that scandalized the servants, a directness in speech and manner that suggested she had never learned the careful deference expected from those of lower station. This rebellious nature might have been interpreted as evidence of her supernatural origins, the wild spirit of a creature never meant to be bound by human conventions. Alternatively, it could have reflected the profound dislocation of a child torn from everything familiar, thrust into a world where the very rules of existence seemed different. Her defiance might have been the only way she knew to maintain some connection to the person she had been before the bells called her through the darkness. Yet, despite her challenging behavior, or perhaps because of it, the girl found her place in the strange new world she had entered. She learned not just the language, but the customs, the expectations, the intricate web of relationships that bound medieval society together. Her green skin became a memory, her alien speech replaced by fluent English, her mysterious origins gradually overshadowed by her very human needs and desires. Years passed, and the girl who had once been as green as spring leaves grew into a woman whose past seemed like something from a dream. She served in Sir Richard's household with competence, if not always with the humility her station demanded. Her bold nature, which had once scandalized the servants, gradually became accepted as simply part of her character, a reminder of the extraordinary circumstances that had brought her to their world. The question of her true identity became a source of endless speculation among those who knew her story. Some scholars would later suggest she was given the name Agnes, that she married a royal official named Richard Barra, that she lived out her days as a respectable member of English society. Others doubted these claims, pointing out that the records of such marriages were incomplete, that the connection between the green girl and any documented Agnes remained tenuous at best. What remained undisputed was that she had survived, that she had found a way to bridge the impossible gap between the twilight realm of her birth and the sun-drenched world of medieval England. Her very existence stood as testimony to the power of human adaptability, to the possibility that even the most profound differences could be overcome through patience, compassion, and time. But questions lingered, questions that would echo through the centuries as scholars and storytellers grappled with the implications of her tale. If her account was true, if she and her brother had indeed emerged from some underground passage connecting worlds, what did that suggest about the nature of reality itself? Were there truly other realms existing parallel to our own, separated only by barriers thin enough for lost children to cross? The medical explanations that modern scholars have proposed for the green children's condition offer compelling alternatives to supernatural theories, yet they raise questions of their own. Hypochromic anemia, historically known as chlorosis or green sickness, could indeed account for the distinctive coloration that so terrified the villagers of Woolpit. This blood disorder, caused by severe malnutrition and iron deficiency, manifests in a greenish pallor that would have appeared otherworldly to medieval observers, unfamiliar with its medical basis. The children's exclusive craving for raw, broad beans supports this diagnosis with startling precision. Beans contain high levels of iron and folate, precisely the nutrients needed to combat anemia. Their instinctive preference for these vegetables suggests bodies desperate for the minerals that could restore their blood to normal function. As they gradually accepted a more varied diet under Sir Richard's care, their green coloration faded, their health improved, and their appearance became increasingly human. Yet this medical explanation, while satisfying to modern minds, fails to address the deeper mysteries surrounding their arrival. If malnutrition caused their condition, what circumstances had led to such severe deprivation? The girl's account of St. Martin's Land, with its perpetual twilight and universal greenness, could be interpreted as the confused memories of a child describing a place where such malnutrition was commonplace, where entire populations might suffer from the same deficiency that had marked her and her brother. The historical context of 12th century England provides another lens through which to examine their story. The anarchy had displaced thousands, creating streams of refugees who wandered the countryside seeking shelter and sustenance. Flemish immigrants, in particular, faced persecution and violence as political winds shifted. Children separated from their families during such upheavals might well have suffered the malnutrition that could explain their green skin, while their foreign language could easily have sounded like gibberish to English villagers. This theory gains strength when we consider the timing of their appearance. The summer of 1135 coincided with particularly brutal campaigns against Flemish settlements, campaigns that left countless families scattered and destroyed. 2 Flemish children, orphaned and starving, might have wandered for weeks through unfamiliar territory, surviving on whatever wild plants they could find, their bodies gradually succumbing to the malnutrition that would mark them as otherworldly to their eventual rescuers. The underground passages the girl described could have been real caves or tunnels, perhaps ancient Roman constructions or natural formations that connected distant regions. Medieval England was riddled with such passages, many forgotten or known only to local populations. Children fleeing persecution might have hidden in these underground spaces, following them in hopes of escape, until they emerged in the strange landscape around Woolpit. The bells that guided their journey could have been the actual bells of Bury St. Edmund's Abbey, that great religious center whose influence extended throughout the region. Sound carries far underground, and the regular tolling of abbey bells might indeed have provided navigation for lost children trying to find their way to safety. What seemed supernatural to medieval chroniclers could have been the simple physics of acoustic transmission through subterranean chambers. But even these rational explanations struggle against certain aspects of the children's story that resist easy categorization. The uniformity of their green coloration suggests something beyond typical anemia. The complete inability to communicate in any recognizable language implies isolation so complete that it bordered on the impossible. Their utter rejection of all foods except raw beans indicates a dietary restriction, so specific it defies normal patterns of human behavior. William of Newburgh himself grappled with these contradictions, acknowledging his reluctance to include such an incredible tale, while insisting that the reliability of his sources left him no choice. A man of learning and discernment, he understood the difference between folklore and documented fact. His decision to record the story speaks to evidence so compelling that scholarly skepticism could not dismiss it entirely. Ralph of Coggeshall approached the tale from a different perspective, drawing his account directly from Sir Richard de Calne, the man who had sheltered the children and witnessed their transformation firsthand. This direct connection to the events lends additional credibility to the story, while highlighting the consistency between independent sources separated by geography and time. The children's story resonated through medieval society, not merely as curiosity but as challenge to established understanding of the world's boundaries. In an age when the known world seemed to end at the horizon, when maps bore warnings of monsters and unknown lands, the appearance of green children suggested that reality contained depths and possibilities that defied conventional wisdom. Their tale spoke to fundamental questions about identity, belonging, and the nature of difference itself. In a society rigidly stratified by birth, language, and custom, these children represented something unprecedented, beings who existed outside all established categories. They were neither fully foreign nor domestic, neither entirely human nor obviously supernatural, neither completely Christian nor definitively pagan. The girl's eventual integration into English society represented a triumph of human adaptability over seemingly insurmountable differences. Her marriage to a man from King's Lynn, if the scholarly identification is correct, would have completed her transformation from otherworldly creature to respected member of the community. Yet this integration came at the cost of her unique identity, the gradual erasure of everything that had made her extraordinary. Modern retellings of the story continue to explore these themes of difference and assimilation, of the price paid for acceptance in a world that demands conformity. Writers and scholars find in the Green Children a mirror for contemporary concerns about immigration, identity, and the treatment of those who appear different from ourselves. Their tale remains relevant precisely because it addresses questions that every human society must confront. The scientific explanations that emerged in later centuries, while providing rational frameworks for understanding the children's condition, cannot fully capture the wonder and terror that their appearance inspired in medieval minds. To dismiss their story as mere medical misunderstanding diminishes the profound impact it had on those who witnessed it, the way it challenged their assumptions about the nature of reality itself. Perhaps the truth lies not in choosing between supernatural and scientific explanations, but in recognizing that the Green Children's story operates on multiple levels simultaneously. They were real children who suffered real hardships and found real salvation in the charity of medieval Christians. They were also symbols of the unknown, representatives of possibilities that existed beyond the boundaries of conventional understanding. Their green skin, whether caused by anemia or something more mysterious, marked them as creatures caught between worlds, beings who belonged fully to neither the realm they had left nor the one they entered. In their gradual transformation from green to human, from alien to familiar, they embodied the possibility of bridging differences that seemed absolute. The boy's death added tragedy to mystery, reminding all who heard their story that not every crossing between worlds could be completed successfully. His failure to adapt, his body's inability to sustain the transformation that saved his sister, spoke to the fragility of existence itself, the narrow margin that separates survival from extinction. Yet the girl's survival offered hope that even the most profound differences could be overcome, that love and patience could accomplish what seemed impossible. Her story became a testament to human resilience, to the capacity for growth and change that allows individuals to transcend the circumstances of their birth. As the decades passed and the girl aged into anonymity, the Green Children evolved from historical figures into legend, their story preserved in chronicles that would outlast kingdoms and dynasties. Each retelling added new details, new interpretations, new meanings that reflected the concerns and understanding of successive generations. But at its core, their tale remained constant, a reminder that the world contains mysteries that resist easy explanation, that reality includes possibilities we have yet to fully comprehend. In an age that believes itself capable of explaining everything through science and reason, the Green Children of Woolpit stand as gentle challenges to our certainty, questions marks written in flesh and blood across the pages of history. Their story asks us to consider what we would do when faced with the impossible, how we would respond to beings who defy our understanding of what is real and what is fantasy. Would we, like the villagers of Woolpit, offer charity to the strange and frightening? Would we, like Sir Richard de Calne, open our homes to creatures that challenged everything we thought we knew about the world? The Green Children's legacy lives not in the answers they provide, but in the questions they continue to pose, the way they force us to confront the boundaries of our own understanding and the possibility that those boundaries might be far more flexible than we dare imagine. The chroniclers who preserved their story faced a dilemma that would echo through the centuries of scholarship. How does one record the impossible while maintaining credibility? How does one document events that defy the natural order without appearing mad or heretical? William of Newburgh wrestled with these questions, his scholarly reputation hanging in the balance as he chose to include a tale that reason rejected but evidence demanded. His solution was careful qualification, surrounding the account with testimonies from multiple witnesses, emphasizing the reliability of his sources and acknowledging his own reluctance to believe. Yet, beneath this scholarly caution lay a deeper truth about the nature of medieval understanding. The world of the 12th century operated according to different rules than our own, where the supernatural existed alongside the mundane, where miracles and mysteries formed part of daily experience rather than exceptions to natural law. Ralph of Coggeshall approached the same challenge from his position as abbot, a man whose spiritual authority rested on his ability to distinguish between divine truth and human folly. His decision to record the Green Children's story carried different implications than William's scholarly account. As a religious leader, Ralph's inclusion of their tale suggested not merely historical documentation, but spiritual significance, a recognition that their appearance might carry meaning beyond mere curiosity. The differences between their accounts, subtle though they are, reveal how the same extraordinary events could be filtered through different perspectives and purposes. William emphasized the miraculous nature of their appearance, the way they challenged understanding of the world's boundaries. Ralph focused more on their integration into Christian society, their baptism and eventual assimilation serving as testament to the power of faith to transform even the most alien beings. Both chroniclers shared a fundamental assumption about their readership's capacity to accept the impossible. Medieval audiences, unlike their modern counterparts, possessed frameworks for understanding events that transcended natural law. Angels walked among men, saints performed miracles, and the boundary between earth and heaven remained permeable. Within such worldviews, green children emerging from underground passages required explanation rather than dismissal. The preservation of their story in written form elevated it from local gossip to historical record, ensuring its survival through centuries that would witness the rise and fall of kingdoms, the transformation of languages, and the complete reorganization of human understanding about the nature of reality. Yet, this preservation came with its own costs, freezing fluid oral tradition into fixed narrative, reducing the living complexity of experience into the limitations of medieval Latin prose. The girl's own voice, filtered through translation and transcription, reaches us only in fragments. Her description of St. Martin's Land, with its perpetual twilight and universal greenness, carries the poetry of homesickness mixed with the confusion of a child trying to explain the inexplicable. We hear in her words not just information about another world, but the profound disorientation of someone struggling to bridge incompatible realities. Her account of the journey that brought them to Woolpit reads like a fever dream, reality blending with impossibility until cause and effect lose their normal relationships. The cattle they were herding, the sound of bells echoing through darkness, the endless tunnels that led from one world to another. These details resist rational interpretation while maintaining an internal consistency that suggests genuine memory rather than fabricated fantasy. The bells particularly intrigue modern readers, for they represent a connection between the supernatural and the mundane that characterizes much of medieval experience. If the bells of Bury St. Edmund's Abbey could indeed be heard through underground passages, if their sound could guide lost children from one realm to another, then the miraculous becomes merely the unknown rather than the impossible. This interpretation aligns with the historical reality of 12th century England, where ancient Roman constructions, natural cave systems, and forgotten passageways honeycombed the landscape. Children fleeing violence or persecution might well have found refuge in such underground spaces, following acoustic clues toward safety without understanding the geography of their journey. Yet, even this rationalization struggles against the sheer improbability of the children's survival. Underground travel across significant distances would have required knowledge, supplies, and guidance that two starving children could not have possessed. The uniform green coloration that marked them both suggests exposure to conditions or substances that affected them identically, implying shared experiences that go beyond simple malnutrition. The medical explanation of hypochromic anemia, while compelling, raises its own questions about the circumstances that could have produced such severe deficiency in two children simultaneously. Anemia of sufficient severity to cause the dramatic green coloration described by the chroniclers would have required months or years of extreme malnutrition, conditions so harsh that survival itself becomes questionable. Their exclusive craving for raw broad beans suggests bodies responding to specific nutritional deficiencies with remarkable precision. This instinctive knowledge of what foods could restore their health implies either extraordinary luck or some deeper understanding of their condition that transcended conscious awareness. The fact that their improvement coincided exactly with their dietary changes supports the medical diagnosis, while deepening the mystery of how they acquired such precise nutritional wisdom. The boy's death, occurring despite the same care that saved his sister, points to complications beyond simple malnutrition. Perhaps his condition was more severe, his body less capable of recovery. Perhaps the trauma of their journey affected him more profoundly, making adaptation to their new world impossible. His passing serves as a reminder that not every mystery has a happy resolution, that some bridges between worlds cannot be successfully crossed. The girl's survival and eventual integration stands in stark contrast to her brother's fate, suggesting either greater resilience or different exposure to whatever conditions had caused their appearance. Her gradual transformation from green creature to Englishwoman represents one of history's most documented cases of successful assimilation across seemingly impossible differences. Nearly 9 centuries later, the Green Children of Woolpit continue to challenge our understanding of what is possible and what is real. Their story survives not because we have solved its mystery, but because it forces us to confront the boundaries of our own certainty. Whether they were refugees transformed by malnutrition, visitors from another realm, or something else entirely, their tale reminds us that the world still holds secrets that defy easy explanation. In their green skin and alien words, in their desperate hunger and gradual transformation, we find reflections of our own struggles with difference, belonging, and the courage required to bridge impossible gaps between worlds. The children who emerged from the wolf pits of Woolpit vanished into history, but their questions remain, whispered on the wind across Suffolk fields, challenging each generation to decide what they believe about the nature of reality itself. Some mysteries are meant not to be solved, but to be remembered, carried forward like sacred flames that illuminate the darkness of our assumptions and light the way toward wonder. If this story has stirred something deep within you, if it has made you question what you thought you knew about the world,